Okay, it's time for our debate. The Minister for Trade and member for Corio joins us. Richard Marles, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tom. How are you?
And his opposite number, the member for Higgins, Kelly O'Dwyer. Kelly, hello.
Hello, how are you, Tom?
Very good. Now, Richard, we had a caller just before who said that Labor doesn't understand that you can't keep putting everything on the Visa card. Is that true?
We absolutely understand that you can't do that, which is why net debt, even under this economic statement, will be at about 13% of GDP when it peaks. Now, that compares very well to the rest of the world, one of the lowest levels of net debt anywhere in the world. Our biggest OECD trading partner has net debt beyond 100%. So it's actually small debt compared to the rest of the world, and that is in a context where the world has gone through the most difficult economic environment since the Great Depression.
Well, this is true, but let's just be clear here. The global financial crisis was sort of back in 2008, 2009. Like,
You're saying it stopped then?
Well, actually, yes, it has.
It finished.
Well, I must have been misreading what's been happening in Europe and North America.
Well, I'll tell you if you've misread it. Firstly, the American economy is growing again. It's improving.
Sure.
Europe has bottomed out, but it's probably on the improve, but it's not getting any worse. China's still growing. Like, I guess my point is that where's the point where you say, okay, the world is actually getting better rather than continually getting worse?
Well, the point is the world is still going through difficult economic circumstances. What you've said about the US is right, but if you look at where the US bottomed out, far below where we have, during this entire period, we're one of two economies not to have gone into recession. We have grown more over the last 4 years, or since the global economic crisis, than any other OECD country, and by a country mile. Like our nearest competitor, which would be Canada, has grown at about half the rate that we have. So however you measure it, we are doing incredibly well compared to the rest of the world. We have a AAA rating, never occurred during the Howard era, and we've done all of this during that time. Now, the fact of the matter is that even over the last few months, we've seen our terms of trade decline, and that has a lot to do with what's going on in China.
Kelly O'Dwyer, your response?
Well, look, I think it's a very valiant attempt, Richard, to try and justify the extraordinary spending and the fact that the Treasurer had to come out today and walk away from a budget that was delivered only 10 weeks ago. But if you actually want to be really honest about the global situation and Australia's economic position, you shouldn't compare us to Europe. You should actually look back at the position that you inherited. The reason why we didn't achieve AAA credit ratings is actually because we inherited $96 billion of Labor's debt. We actually had to pay that back. We provided for the future with the Future Fund $70 billion of net assets, and we delivered surplus after surplus. We had a $20 million surplus when we last left government. We had, you're right, very high terms of trade. However, this government, even with the deterioration of the terms of trade that's been announced today, is higher than at any time during the previous coalition government. No, it is. It is right. And so this idea that somehow that the Labor Party inherited a really poor position is not true. You had no net debt. There were no borrowings. And yet we are now at a point where we're going to hit a gross debt ceiling way beyond the $300 billion that was increased from the $75 billion that Labor first set up. We're now talking more than $400 billion as a result of the statement made today by the Treasurer.
We've heard from both of you. Let's go to a couple of calls. Plenty of people have questions to ask. Tom, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just basically, look, I was just going to state beforehand, I'm a swinging voter. I've voted Labor in the past, and then I've also voted Liberal. I voted for John Howard the first time he came in, and then later when it was time for Rudd to come in, I voted for him. But look, I'm pretty disillusioned with the whole lot. Basically, it's a fallacy that Labor's done any good at all under its tenure of the government, because when you look at what's happened to Australia during that period of time, it's quite right that what's just been said. The Labor Party inherited a whole lot of money in the bank, and basically, right now, we got nothing. That's a fact.
Well, Tom, it's probably a little bit harsh to say we've got absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm looking out the window here and the buildings are still standing and cars are still driving up and down the streets. Southern Cross Station is heaving on a Friday afternoon.
That was Jeff Kennett.
Your response, Richard Marles?
Well, if you look at the unemployment rate that we inherited at the time that we came to power, it was about the same as what was in the US. If you look at the unemployment rate today in the US, compared to Australia now, and you would have, which is far higher than what's in Australia now, and you look at the way in which that economy traversed the global economic crisis versus our own, had we done what the US has done, there would be hundreds of thousands of people who would have been out of work today who are now in work. Now, I think they would say that they got something out of this government. And as we've said many times on this show before, one of the key stimulus packages which was behind keeping those people at work was opposed by the opposition. So that's an important part of all this.
We'll have Kelly O'Dwyer's response and more calls if you'd like to take part in the discussion. 96900 693 straight after the news headlines and the break. News headlines now with Tony Tardio. Tony, good afternoon.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon to you again. The federal opposition says it doesn't trust Treasury forecasts that show the budget returning to surplus in 2016. The Rudd government's mini-budget delivered today shows a $33 billion fall in revenue. Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey says Labor can't be trusted to bring the budget back into the black. Police investigating the apparent murder of a 42-year-old Pakenham mother of 3 believe she may have been the victim of a burglary gone wrong. Kylie Blackwood has been described as a loving mother and devoted wife. Police say they're concerned a taxi driver who viciously assaulted and robbed a passenger in Richmond is still operating in Melbourne. And in sport, heavy showers could interrupt day 2 of the third Ashes test in Manchester tonight. Australia will resume at 3 for 303. More in 3AW News at 5.
Thanks, Tony. Calls coming up. It's 28 to 5.
3AW Traffic for Tyre Power. Get the buying power of a 260-store network.
Looking very heavy at the moment in Carlton still, with an earlier smash on Princess Street at Lygon Street. Another accident in Springvale and Westall Road just north of Heatherton Road. And we're getting reports of a smash in Height on the Nepean Highway city bound. It's looking very heavy with a lane closed. No big surprises on the Western Ring Road. Snug around the Western Highway, but really crushed now as you head past the Craigieburn bypass. Things loosen up a little bit once you clear Dalton Road. Also the West Cape Freeway, very heavy inbound from the city side of the bridge to the Burnley Tunnel, heading out heavy over the bridge as well. On the Tullamarine Freeway, slow going city bound from around the Sound Tunnel due to an earlier broken down truck. He's now chugging along in the right lane. He's finally got going. If you're heading out of town from the Bell Street outbound on-ramp through to the Essendon Airport, there are musical lanes. It's a little bit hairy. The Eastern Freeway, very busy between Burke and Bulleen Roads, and so is the Monash Freeway from Wellington Road through to the Princess Freeway. And also at 5 o'clock, there's a rally due to kick off in the CBD at Swanston and Flinders Streets. And that's 3AW Traffic. We've all got an off in our minds. Switch to simpler banking with access to your money your way. Everyday banking from ANZ. I'm Caroline Ferguson.
Hello, on 7 News, police investigate the violent murder of a Pakenham mother of 3. A group of Melbourne school students endure a flight from hell. And James Hird hires a top lawyer as D-Day looms for the club. Details at 6.
Come on, fellas, you've been scratchy all game. Any more bumps, we're done. You've been getting smashed. I give you my lifetime guarantee we can turn this around. Shooting, I'm putting you at full forward. Now look, fellas, you get that ball to steam and crush in hard and clean them up.
The coach's half-time address. Inspired by phone 1300 Repair or visit sheengroup.com.au.
Want to go to Springvale Homemaker Centre? It's the largest homemaker centre in the Southern Hemisphere, the size of 2 MCGs.
I'm listening.
Over 30 homemaker retailers, including Harvey Norman, Domain, IKEA, Anaconda, Snooze, Berkowitz, Howard Storage World, Beacon Lighting and more.
Tell me more.
Free undercover car parks, cafes, and it's family friendly.
I'm sold.
Everything to make your house a home, all under one roof. Follow us on Facebook. Shop, explore, relax at Springvale Homemaker Centre, corner Princes Highway and Westall Road.
Introducing another RACV small business achiever, Angelo Sanfilippo. Angelo is an all-rounder who can plaster, paint, tile, build and more. Sounds like a very handy handyman. Angelo has built up quite a business by promising to stand behind his work, just like RACV stands behind Angelo with cover for his business insurance needs. To find out how we can build a package to suit your small business, call 13 RACV. Product issued by Insurance Australia Limited. Please consider the PDS. For a copy, call 13 RACV.
Riverview. Enjoy life in style by the water, where exceptional style and stunning single-level living options meet a vibrant lifestyle. Only 9 kilometres from the CBD and nestled on the bank of the Maribyrnong River, Riverview combines the best of city convenience with riverside tranquility. Riverview. Contemporary lifestyle living for over 55s. Display suite now open. Call 1300 298 439. 1300 298 439.
A word of advice from Geeks to You. Never let your computer know you're in a hurry. If your computer is running slow, get help. Call Geeks to You. Our expert geeks will have your hard drive humming in no time. For fast, friendly, same-day service, get a geek that speaks your language. Call 1300 Geeks to You. That's 1300 433 572. No one fixes computers like a geek. geeks2u.com.au.
Hi, Mark from Cream at Sassafras. Discover the villages of Mount Dandenong. I have. Only an hour from the CBD, there's so much to see and do. Winter is misty and snug in cosy cafes and restaurants of Sassafras, Olinda, Mount Dandenong and beyond. So much good food. So hard to say no. Walk it off, explore national parks, see stunning views. Or browse through the beautiful shops. You'll find clothes and gifts for your home or someone you love. Discover the villages of Mount Dandenong. It's about discovering yourself. Visit villagesofmountdandenong.com.
Imagine a Lexus CT 200H Prestige pulling into your driveway, and it could all start with a little rumour.
Call the rumour file just after 7 on 3AW Breakfast with thanks to Lexus of Blackburn. Big permit 13129.
You're listening to Drive with Tom Elliott.
23 to 5, Richard Marles, the Minister for Trade and Member for Corio, and Kelly O'Dwyer, the Liberal Member for Higgins, are here, and they're taking your calls, 96900 693. Bruce, good afternoon.
There you go, Tom. How you going?
Good, thanks, Bruce.
Good. Richard, you keep comparing us to all these other countries in the world. Well, most of them haven't had a mining boom like we've just had. So you blokes have absolutely stuffed it up. Now, how do we know, too, that our debt's not twice what it is? Because only about a month ago, they were telling us about half what it is now. Now, I think we've really got to get the cards on the table here, and you blokes have got to really get your act together.
All right, Richard, cards on the table?
In terms of cards on the table, there's never been a question about the size of debt. The issue that people talk about is forecasts, and whether forecasts are an assumption about what's going to happen, and it's the question of the accuracy of that. But there's never been a question about the accuracy of where we're at this moment, which has always been completely clear.
So today you know what you're doing.
Yeah, but
tomorrow...
in terms of the forecast, we live in the most changeable economic world that we've seen since the Great Depression. Shouldn't be surprising that forecasting in this environment is difficult.
Well, Kelly...
But the forecast that we did during the budget stood up to scrutiny by forecasters from all the private banks and all those who were commentating at the time. It's the best that can be done in these circumstances.
Well, that's not entirely true. I'll play you my budget speech that I recorded at the NAB where I said, do not trust Treasury about 24 times in a row. Kelly O'Dwyer, your Treasurer-elect Joe Hockey has said that he no longer trusts Treasury, a bit like a lot of people in the private sector. So who are you going to get to do your forecasting if it's not the Federal Treasury, if you're lucky enough to be elected to government?
Well, of course, we would actually rely on the advice by Treasury and Finance. But let me first respond, though, to something that Richard said. He said, well, we go on the best estimates at the time, and we're absolutely, solid and stand beside those. Well, 10 weeks ago, you actually delivered a budget, and you said that, over the next 2 years, there was going to be another deficit of around about $30 billion. Today, we learned that was wrong, and you can double it. Over the next 12 months, you can actually double the deficit figure. So in 10 weeks, you've got it that wrong. And we see the unusual circumstances now where a Treasurer who has only just delivered a budget, I know it was Wayne Swan and now it's Chris Bowen, there's a bit of a revolving door when it comes to ministers in this government. But given that, we actually did have a Labor minister deliver the budget only 10 weeks ago, it seems quite strange that you felt the need to come out now and declare a new statement. This is quite unprecedented. And it just goes to demonstrate how you're all over the shop on this stuff. Your unemployment figures are going up.
Let me just answer that.
What's it like being a minister?
It's good. The forecasts have changed significantly in the last few months. That's just how it is. But
you were overly ambitious.
No, because
they were heroic assumptions.
They were the forecasts of Treasury, which, and I say what I said before, which when assessed by all the private commentators,
the Treasury sets the tone.
Were seen as being appropriate forecasts at the time. Now they have changed. That is true. And so what we've done as a government in response is put forward this economic economic statement, which has seen savings put in place throughout the period of the forward estimate, so that we deal with the changing circumstances. People would like to think that we're immune from the global economic circumstances.
Right, can I just say to both of you what I would say is this. Now, Richard, you're in government. Kelly, you have a chance of being in government. Next time either of you are sitting there in front of some people from Treasury with the forecasts, take what they say with a grain of salt. And whatever positive things there are, just subtract a bit from it. That to me seems to be the thing to do, because they're always overly optimistic. Let's see what other people think. Joe, good afternoon.
Look, I can't believe this government pounds its chest to say, we are much better off, our employment has grown or stronger. What absolute rubbish. I've never heard so much rubbish. The employment, they consider a person that's employed by them working 1 hour a day. So therefore they fiddle the book to make it look like the employment numbers are higher. It's a crock of rubbish.
Joe, it's actually 1 hour a week, would you believe? But to be fair, that's not the government's fault. That's the Australian Bureau of Statistics. The Roy Morgan Research Centre actually does what they call an underemployment index. They say the true rate of unemployment is much higher than that. Joe, thank you for the call. I do like the pounding the chest thing. I don't know, Richard, if you'd been to the zoo before the silverback died, but Rigo, his name was. He died of a heart attack.
I didn't know that.
Once I was there and he did the old pounding the chest, and it sounds like someone bashing an empty barrel. It's quite impressive.
Well, there's been a bit of that going on, I think, with this government. So it's a good analogy.
Let's go to Merv. Good afternoon, Merv.
Oh, good afternoon, Tom. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Pleasure.
I'm a small business owner, and we're really struggling out here. We're in the construction game. I was hoping, I think it's Richard, if you could do 4 things. Actually, I'll give you a fighting chance. 2 things since 2007 that Labor has done for the backbone, that is small business. Thank you.
Oh, there you go, Richard. 2 things that Labor has done for small business.
Well, in tripling the tax-free threshold for all of those sole traders out there, that's made an enormous difference for them in terms of small business.
But with the low income tax offset, that was virtually negligible, because it was almost the same thing. You know, when you actually add in the low income tax offset, it was around about $18,000 when you add that in anyway. Anyway, I'll let you finish the second point, because I'd love to hear it.
And the second thing?
The lost carryback. The ability to, in terms of when you're doing what you can do tax deductions on, looking at losses previously and making that a part of it, that's an enormous benefit for small business. The instant asset write-off. So there's a range of measures that we've put in place for small business.
Well, Kelly, your party, the Liberal Party, has often been seen historically as the representative of small business. If you were in power, what would you do? 2 things.
Well, firstly, we wouldn't be slugging them every 5 seconds, which is what this current government is doing. They don't understand that small business owners, with new taxes, there are 42 new or increased taxes, and that slugs small business owners. It has become so difficult now to employ people and to run a business.
Well, what taxes are we talking about? We tax less than you do.
Well, I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to answer if you give me a chance. I regularly speak to the small business owners in my electorate, and they tell me that they are really struggling. You know, one small business owner came in to see me. She said she'd been in business for 20 years. This is the toughest she has ever found it.
But was she a retailer?
Part of the reason, a retailer, that's correct. No, but she, she's been in business for 20 years. She's somebody who's actually maintained a successful business. And she said, I'm part of the working poor now. She is the one that really struggles because she doesn't pay herself the salary. So the 2 things that we will do, we will actually get rid of a number of these taxes, such as the carbon tax, which is actually having a significant impact on small business. And secondly, we'll get rid of the more than 21,000 new regulations that this government has imposed, making it even more difficult for business to get on and employ people and grow the economy.
All right, there you go, Merv. 2 things from Richard, 2 things from Kelly. You can't lose. Actually, just on the issue of regulations and things, I noticed that when, just before Julia Gillard was asked to leave the room, that she said this has been a very successful parliament and we've passed X many thousand pieces of legislation or whatever it was. Does it ever occur to either of you being politicians that maybe getting rid of rules and legislation might be a good thing, that a measure of government or a parliament is not necessarily creating more laws?
I agree with you.
I think that's right, but let's be clear. You need legislation to get rid of rules. Like
to get rid of the legislation, you need
but you haven't been doing that. You've been increasing it.
That's not
More
right.
than 21,000 new regulations since 2007.
To repeal regulation requires a piece of legislation.
Right. I just think it'd be a good thing if perhaps once a year they said, well, let's just get rid of, I don't know,
and that's what we've said we will do, Tom. That's exactly part of our coalition policy. We've said we're going to set 2 days aside in the Parliament to do just that, to get rid of the regulations.
Well, 2 days in a year?
2 full days. No, but 2 full days dedicated in the Parliament to do
What about 100 days?
well, let's start with 2, Tom, and let's actually focus on getting rid of.
If you want to look at business activity statements, which are part of the GST, I mean that's been the biggest impost on small business red tape that we've seen. Howard government issue.
All right, we're out of time. It's been great to talk with you both again. A most spirited debate. Kelly O'Dwyer, thanks for coming in.
Great to be with you.
Richard Miles, good to see you.
Good to see you.
We'll do it again in 2 weeks' time. It's 4:45.